Hello everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic Wrestling back once again, and it's time to talk about everything that happened at AEW Dynasty 2025. Let's go. The first match on the pre-show sees AR Fox and Top Flight take on the trio of Nick Wayne and Crew, the team of Lio Rush and Action Andretti. AR Fox kicks things off with an immediate dive to the outside, but the heels briefly take control until Dante Martin gets the tag and runs around really fast. Whee! That stops, however, when Nick Wayne throws him into the ring steps and poses on the crowd barricade to draw some nice heat. Darius is beaten down for a while, but gets the hot tag to his younger brother, but Kip Sabian tries to distract Dante from the apron. Lio Rush then tries to attack Dante with a chain, but Dante avoids it. But this does turn the tide of the match back in favor of the heels temporarily. AR Fox seems to be the most overman with the crowd, and he does finally get the big hot tag in, taking it to all three opponents at once, and culminating in 3 huge consecutive dives to the outside. Back in the ring, Nick Wayne counters a swanton attempt from Fox with knees, and the match breaks down with everyone hitting a big move on each other after big move in quick succession. After this massive furious exchange, Fox is the last man standing. Sabian again tries to get involved, but Layla Gray drags him off the apron. However, this commotion distracts the referee, and Mother Wayne shoves AR Fox out of the corner. Her son capitalizes, and the heels get the win. Next on the pre-show, we have Max Caster's open challenge against a mystery opponent. Caster comes out with the mic and gets the crowd to join in with his chant of "Let's go Max, you're the best wrestler alive, let's go Max, you're the best." They actually do start to do the chant, but he stops them because they're getting the inflection wrong. Max unveils the jersey of former Philadelphia 76ers player Ben Simmons, which doesn't go down well with the Philly crowd, and then he unfavorably compares the city to New York, which again does not go down well either. Max is interrupted by the arrival of his mystery opponent, and it's none other than his former tag team partner in the Acclaimed, Anthony Bowens, who gets a big deal entrance alongside Billy Gunn. It seems to be maybe the start of quite a considerable singles push. We'll have to wait and see. The former friends square off, and Bowens throws Caster's Best Wrestler Alive certificate out of the ring. He hits a big right hand at the bell and easily takes control of the match. He hits a few strikes here and there, and then finishes things off very quickly with a big discus elbow. 1, 2, 3, and that's all she wrote. Anthony Bowens beats his former tag team partner with ease. Bowens cuts an intense promo into the ringside camera saying he is the pride of pro wrestling, he is AEW's 5-tool player, and he is ready to make history. The first match of the main show is one of the first round matches in the men's Owen Hart tournament. It's Will Ospreay versus the newcomer to AEW, Kevin Knight. Knight scores a few little wins over Ospreay in the opening exchanges and seems quite cocky about it, only to get hit with a big boot that sends him spilling to the outside, where he gets hit with a plancher. They exchange control segment, and Ospreay nails his handspring corkscrew kick for a near fall. Will presses the advantage with a couple of German suplexes, and then we get a strike exchange with both men holding onto the other's wrist. It's Knight who wins this exchange with a huge forearm, and then he chains a few nice moves together. Ospreay has to bail to the outside, so then Knight hits quite a unique splash from the apron over the top of the ring post to the adjacent side of the ring. A little bit later on, Knight blocks an attempted sunset bomb to the outside, but Ospreay catches himself on the floor, tries to transition into a Styles Clash, only for Knight to pop up and nail a big DDT. He lands another one back inside, but Ospreay kicks out and later on goes for another Styles Clash, but Knight reverses it with a very slick Hurricane Rana, which gets a big pop from the crowd. It's not enough to put Will away though, and he goes for the Os Cutter, which is met with a mid-air dropkick, and Knight heads up top for his finisher, the UFO Splash. He nails it, but it's only a near fall. Another Os Cutter attempt is countered with a nice backslide for 2, but Will does finally nail the Styles Clash, only for Knight to kick out. We then get an immediate Os Cutter, which also only gets 2, but the Hidden Blade finishes Kevin off while keeping him looking strong in defeat against one of AEW's top guys. Will advances to the next round of the tournament and shares a nice moment of respect with his opponent after the match. The next match sees the Hurt Syndicate defending the tag team titles against the team of Big Bill and Brian Keith. MVP joins the announce team as Keith tags out early to Bill for a big man showdown against Big Bob. Bill ends up knocking both champions to the outside, and they need a breather. MVP even leaves the announce table to give them a bit of a pep talk. Back inside, the bounty hunter is worn down by the champions for a while, and Shelton takes him to the outside and just rams him repeatedly into the crowd barricade. However, back inside, Bryan nicely avoids Lashley's Dominator attempt by landing on his feet and does finally get the tag to Big Bill, who runs wild for a bit, but Shelton blindsides him with a very impressive German suplex, but it only gets 2. Bill regains control and MVP is worried as Bill looks to land a big chokeslam on Shelton, who slips out of it only to get dropped with a big boot. Keith tags back into the match, but Lashley runs into the ring and just runs him over. Bill sends Lashley to the outside, however, and they battle at ringside. The camera kind of misses it at first, we do see a replay, but Bill is suddenly attacked from over the crowd barricade by MJF, who clocks him with the Dynamite Diamond ring, and then Lashley runs in and hits Bill with the spear as well, just to make sure he's down. It looks as though the Hurt Syndicate aren't too happy about this unwanted help, but it does mean that Bryan Keith is left all alone, and he quickly falls victim to the big spear, and the champions retain the belts. Next, we have an opening round match in the women's Owen Hart tournament as Mercedes Moné takes on Julia Hart. Mercedes takes control early on, and we see Harley Cameron watching backstage with her Mercedes puppet. Back in the ring, the two wrestlers exchange pinfall attempts before Moné goes for some kind of lucha arm drag out of the corner, but she can't quite get a purchase on the bottom rope, and the move's a bit clunky as a result. We do get a nice bit of improv from her though, as the crowd jeer this mistake, so she just does her dance. But this allows Julia to take advantage. Very nicely done indeed. Julia takes evasive action later on with a cartwheel on the apron, but then Moné takes control on the outside before heading back up to the apron herself and landing a Meteora. Back in the ring, Julia kicks out of another Meteora and breaks the Three Amigos sequence, but she goes for a standing moonsault and Moné counters by raising her knees. She then hangs Julia in the Tree of Woe and mocks her by sitting cross-legged and slapping her in the face, and then Mercedes heads up top, but Julia sits up and throws her overhead back into the ring. Julia sits up again to avoid a charge in the corner, and Mercedes tumbles to the outside, where Julia meets her with a big crossbody from up top. Moné kicks out of Julia's big DDT back in the ring. She tries to hit it again, but Moné counters it into like an inverted lung blower, I think. It looks very nice anyway. She goes for the Moné Maker, but Julia slips out and they trade jackknife pinfall attempts for 2. A little bit later on, Julia gets the Tarantula locked in, or a variation of it, shouts out to Tajiri. Julia presses the advantage now and has Moné in position for the big moonsault, but Mercedes counters it with boots to the face on the way down. Mercedes then hits a backstabber and a second one, and now she's in control of the match. She can't fully finish Julia off though, who almost grabs a flash win with a nice crucifix bomb, but it only gets 2. Mercedes locks in the Statement Maker, but Julia breaks free and locks in Heartless, and the crowd come alive as Moné is in serious trouble. She even almost taps out, but rolls Julia into a pinfall attempt, which is kicked out of, but it allows Mercedes to grab the Statement Maker, although it's not quite fully applied. Now Julia tries to roll Mercedes into a pinfall, but it results in the hold being locked in tighter, and now Julia is in trouble. We get thunderous Julia chants from the crowd as she almost makes the ropes, then rolls back into yet another pinfall attempt, but then Moné counters it into a pinfall attempt of her own and gets the 3 count. Instantly, Mercedes gets out of there and sells the relief of the win next to the Owen Hart Cup at the foot of the ramp. Backstage, we see Athena, the Ring of Honor Women's World Champion, watching on, clearly very excited for a showdown in the next round of the tournament. The trio's titles are on the line now as Claudio, Pac, and Wheeler of the Death Riders defend against Rated FTR. And remember, there's tension between Dax and the other members of the team. Kinda Cash, but kinda because Cash is friends with Cobb. I don't know, it's complicated. Dax and Pac start things off, and Pac almost gets the Brutalizer locked in early, but Dax immediately makes the ropes and tags in Cobb. The crowd hate their hometown boy Wheeler Yuta, who tags in and gets dominated by the faces for a while, but then Claudio tags in, but he gets triple teamed and hit with an avalanche body slam from Cash. Very nice. Claudio has to roll outside, but Cash follows him with a Tope Suicida and he's fired up, but now the Death Riders use the numbers game and stomp him in their corner of the ring. Cash fights back and crawls to make the hot tag to Cope, but then Dax hops in the way and steals the tag for himself. He avoids Claudio's big uppercut, and now the match breaks down with everyone getting in the ring and Dax and Claudio applying simultaneous sharpshooters stood opposite each other and exchanging big slaps to the face. Moments later, Claudio nails the uppercut on both Dax and then Cope before tagging in Wheeler for the big swing basement dropkick combination. Dax does kick out at 2 though. Pac hits a pile driver on Dax before Claudio boosts first Wheeler, then Pac into big splashes from up top, but the pinfall is broken up. Dax gets the hot tag to Cope shortly afterwards, who gets a 2 count off the Impaler DDT on Pac. The babyfaces now chain a few top rope moves together on Pac, but Claudio breaks up the pinfall attempt with his head, junkyard dog style. Dax is confused about who the legal man is and tries to pin Wheeler with a sit-out powerbomb, but the actual legal man, Pac, is therefore able to lock in the brutalizer. The other Death Riders hold the other members of the babyface team back as Dax is trapped in the submission, but then Cash staggers over to break the submission hold, even with Wheeler Yuta clinging onto his back. Wheeler tags in but falls victim to the Shatter Machine and a spear, but Claudio is again on hand to break the fall with his head. Cope battles with Claudio on the outside and drops him with a spear as well, before setting up Yuta for a spear in the ring, but Yuta leapfrogs him and he almost runs into Dax. Yuta then shoves the babyfaces into each other and lands the Busaiku knee on Dax Harwood, and the heels retain the belts. But it's not over yet. The Death Riders leave through the crowd and Rated FTR all commiserate with each other and raise their hands in the ring. Cash turns to leave first, and Dax nails Cope with a big pile driver. Cash can't believe it as Dax goes and fetches a pair of chairs for a concerto, telling Cash to deliver the final blow. Of course, Cash isn't going to do that. He's friends with Cope and throws the chair down and shoves Dax to the canvas. He helps Cope up to his feet and then pulls him into position, and he and Dax nail Cope with the Shatter Machine. They're not done either, delivering a spike pile driver to Cope onto a chair on the canvas as well. And still, the attack is not over as finally Cope is set up for the concerto, and it's Cash who insists on hitting it. The doctor gets in the ring, which doesn't stop Cash from hitting a second concerto, and the medical team arrive, and FTR are being really nasty about this, with Cash stealing a neck brace and stretcher from the medical team to mock Cope, laying on the stretcher as Dax applies mock CPR. They leave, FTR are firmly heel once again, and Cope is stretchered out of the arena. Next up is Toni Storm defending her AEW Women's World title against Megan Bayne. Because we're in Philadelphia, Toni gets a Rocky training montage video package, and Luther, who of course is accompanying her to ringside, is dressed as Mickey. It's all very good decisions in my opinion. Oh, Rocky just never, it literally never gets old. And like any good Rocky fight, Toni finds herself in trouble early on as Bayne dominates the champion, countering her offense and scooping her up several times for big power moves. She knocks Storm to the outside with a big boot before destroying Luther with a big dive. Great catch by the Butler, to be fair. Toni then uses a prone Luther's back to hit a tornado DDT, but when the action gets back in the ring, Toni is grabbed by Penelope Ford on the outside as she runs the ropes, and this allows the challenger to regain control. Bayne distracts the ref as Ford gets some cheap offense in on Toni, choking her over the middle rope as well as Penelope poses on the apron next to her. Storm starts to fight back, but Bayne catches a Thez press attempt and lands several overhead suplexes. Toni kicks out, but she's in trouble. Bayne again distracts the referee as Ford now chokes Toni over the top rope, but Luther's recovered and he carries Ford away on his shoulders. It's one-on-one properly now. Toni makes her comeback with a Thez press and a modified STF, but Bayne makes it to the ropes. She then avoids Storm Zero and hits an impressive back suplex, sending Toni from the apron up over the top rope back into the ring. Bayne heads up top, but Toni cuts her off and hits a really scary middle rope suplex, with Bayne landing right on her face, but it could have been worse. She was inches from under-rotating and landing right on her head. Toni looks for the hip attack in the corner, but Bayne grabs her and lands a German suplex of her own, followed by a big Falcon Arrow, but only gets two. Storm fights back again and now does get the hip attack, but Bayne no-sells it, standing up out of the corner, only to be met with a headbutt and a second hip attack, and a third, and a fourth. Storm Zero is hit, and that finishes the job. Just kidding. Megan Bayne kicks out at 1, and the announce team freak out. She is being made to look terrifying here. Bayne fires up and hits 2 big clotheslines, a big powerbomb, and scoops Toni up for the F5 finish, but the champion grabs a small package and gets the lucky win. Well, lucky win or brave win, bit of both. They did a great job here of not only, making Toni look like a valiant, resourceful champion, but making Megan Bayne, even in defeat, look like a really scary challenger. Now we have another Owen Hart first round match in the men's tournament, a rematch between two wrestlers who've been having quite a great series of TV matches in recent times, Kyle Fletcher and Mark Briscoe. We get a hot start as Kyle hits a dive on Briscoe as he makes his way to the ring, and they run through a very fast-paced opening sequence. Mark tries to get a chair involved and tells the crowd to boo the referee when he takes it away. A little bit later on, Mark tries to get several more chairs involved, throwing them into the ring faster than the ref can get rid of them all, but it proves to be his undoing as Kyle intercepts his attempted chair-assisted dive to the outside, sliding in the ring and suplexing Mark into one of the chairs. Fletcher now takes control for a while and boots Mark to the outside, where he goes after him with a couple of apron power bombs. The ref stands in the way of a third, so Fletcher turns around and hits it onto the crowd barricade instead. Mark only just beats the count out back into the ring, but gets taken up top by Kyle, but he bites him in the head and follows up with a shotgun dropkick. The match becomes even again for a while until Mark wins a strike exchange and gets a near fall off a Fisherman Buster, but Kyle fights back, lawn darting Mark head first into one of the turnbuckles. They head to the apron where Fletcher hits a terrifying brainbuster with one of Mark's legs catching the top rope on the way down, which I think actually sort of works out okay, but it's very fortunate. Fletcher grabs him and hits another brainbuster back inside. He thinks it's over as he makes the cover, but is shocked as Mark kicks out. Now Mark slips out of an avalanche brainbuster attempt, or maybe a turnbuckle brainbuster, not certain which one, but either way, Briscoe ends up in the favorable position to hit an avalanche razor's edge, but it's only 2. He follows this up with an immediate sliding lariat and goes up for the froggy bow and nails it, but again Kyle kicks out. Fletcher reverses the J Driller into a roll-up for 2 and counters a second attempt into a brainbuster attempt, but Mark counters that into a burning hammer of all things, but he's too tired to make a pinfall attempt. Fletcher rolls to the outside where Mark heads back up top and meets him with a froggy bow to the outside, rolls Kyle back in, goes for another froggy bow, but Fletcher counters with boots to the face. They end up on the second rope where Fletcher now does land his turnbuckle brainbuster to bring an end to quite a scary match at points. They left everything in the ring. Next up, it's the Ring of Honor World Title match, with Chris Jericho defending against Bandido with a title versus mask stipulation. Bandido's family are at ringside for this one. They've been involved in the feud, remember, with Jericho targeting them. Jericho hits an immediate codebreaker at the bell and almost wins straight away, but Bandido kicks out. But not long after that, he then hits a lion salt, but again Bandido survives. Bandido avoids a kick with a headstand and then a very nimble handspring back to his feet, followed by a pair of dives to the outside. Bandido beats Jericho around ringside and stops to say hello to the family before pressing the advantage back in the ring. He hits the most delayed one-arm vertical delayed suplex I've ever seen, holding Jericho in the air for, I think, a minute before finishing the move. Crazy. Jericho tries to make a comeback but falls over from dizziness. They then end up on the apron where Bandido tries a head scissors, but Jericho catches him and just hits a powerbomb off the apron to the floor. Really nasty bump to take that, I imagine. Jericho taunts the Bandido family and then does that thing he does where he steals the ringside camera for a bit, and then Bandido very slowly beats the count back inside, but it's clearly Jericho in control. He again taunts the Bandido family, but this allows the challenger to hit a nice sunset powerbomb out of the corner. Back up top they go, where Jericho hits 10 punches before reversing an avalanche powerbomb attempt with a nice Hurricane Rana. Bandido fights back though and does an Eddie Guerrero frog splash complete with shimmy beforehand, and then goes back up top for a tornado attempt, but Jericho reverses with, I think, like a mid-air codebreaker, but that only gets 2 as well. Both men slowly rise to their feet and do the 10 paces duel thing, but of course Jericho cheats and turns around early, leading to a pinfall attempt with his feet on the ropes, but it's another false finish. Bandido then makes a comeback, but his approach is a little bit awkward in trying to hit his handspring German thing out of the ropes, his finisher, but Jericho counters it anyway into a roll-up for yet another near fall. Chris locks in the walls now, but the challenger bravely makes the ropes. Jericho argues with the ref because he took too long to break the hold, and then walks into a super kick from Bandido. Both men are down, and this brings out Bryan Keith, who tries to get involved, but Gravity comes along and they brawl at ringside. However, this distracts the referee, which allows Jericho to retrieve his baseball bat and hit Bandido with it. He hides the bat behind the ring steps and then very, very slowly rolls into a cover. And I'm thinking, oh, he's taking so long because this is clearly going to give Bandido time to believably kick out from a baseball bat shot to the head. Instead, Jericho makes the cover 1, 2, 3. What? Did we just see like a Triple H versus Booker T situation? But wait, You may think that the referee's decision is final in wrestling, but not in the case of something quite seldom seen in the modern age, a dusty finish. Bandido's family tell Aubrey Edwards to check behind the ring steps. She does and finds the baseball bat and informs Bryce that the match must restart. Bandido's family celebrate at ringside, but an infuriated Jericho grabs Bandido's sister by the hair. She slaps Jericho, and he rebounds backwards into the center of the ring, where Bandido capitalizes, running through his finishing sequence and winning the match and the Ring of Honor World title. And I fully understand, especially given the amount of very near falls for Jericho throughout this match. I understand wanting to tease us with this gut-wrenching moment of thinking, oh no, Bandido's about to lose his mask via cheating as well. But like, I don't know. I just don't know how I feel about this one. Let me know what you think in that comment section down below. Bandido celebrates with his family and with the Spanish announce team, and just to complete the old school booking touches here, we even get Jericho doing sad Hulk Hogan WrestleMania 6 stuff, pouting and looking very sad as he leaves the ringside area. Next is the TNT title match as Daniel Garcia defends against Adam Cole with a couple of added stipulations, nobody allowed at ringside and no time limit. We have quite an even start to the match until Cole superkicks Garcia off the apron and goes for an early Panama Sunrise, but he seems to have hurt his previously injured ankle upon landing as Garcia moves out of the way. Cole continues to sell the ankle heavily as Garcia capitalizes, blatantly targeting it as they head back into the ring, and this becomes the pattern of the match for a while, with Garcia not caring about looking heelish as he breaks Cole down. Garcia chains together several rolling neck breakers until Cole hits an instinctive Ushi-Goroshi, but he drives Garcia down onto the leg with the weakened ankle, and the champion retains control of the match as a result. Garcia reverses another Panama Sunrise attempt and nails a twisting gotch-style pile driver, very nice, but it only gets 2. Both men exchange strikes until Cole hits a super kick and they both fall down, and it's Garcia who accidentally lands on top for an inadvertent pinfall attempt, which Cole reverses with a backslide, or like a crucifix, I guess, into a near fall of his own. Cole unwisely tries a super kick with the injured leg, and Garcia catches it, applying an ankle lock. The challenger struggles to reach the ropes, but the champion grapevines the leg, but Cole is still able to crawl and grab that bottom rope. Garcia then looks for a pile driver on the ring steps, but Cole counters with another Ushi-Goroshi before hitting Panama Sunrise off the steps to the floor. He scrambles to roll Garcia back into the ring and goes for the boom, but Garcia unintentionally collapses and gets out of the way. Or is it unintentional, as he then rolls Cole up for a near fall when the challenger tries to grab him? Cole tries to charge across the ring, but his leg gives out, and this allows Garcia to steal Panama Sunrise, hitting one of his own and hitting the running boom strike of his own as well, but Cole kicks out. Garcia rams his leg repeatedly into the canvas in frustration before getting a nasty idea. He wants to hit an avalanche pile driver out of the corner, but Cole struggles and headbutts his way free before hitting one Panama Sunrise and a second and nailing the boom and winning the match clean. Adam Cole is the new TNT champion. Cole celebrates with the belt before offering Garcia a handshake. Are we about to see another heel turn tonight? No. Or maybe not yet at least, as Garcia accepts the handshake, sadly raises Cole's hand, and slowly leaves the ring. Next up, this was a long one, the international title match with Kenny Omega defending in a triple threat against both Ricochet and Speedball Mike Bailey. Early on, we get Ricochet starting the match on the outside, occasionally sneaking in to try and land a cheap shot and then darting back out of there again, because he's the heel. At one point, Ricochet tries to plancha onto both opponents on the outside, who both step out of the way. Ricochet lands on his feet, so the two babyfaces just take turns slapping him on top of the head. Speedball escapes the "you can't escape" by slipping behind Kenny into the front row of the crowd, where he lays in some kicks over the crowd barricade and climbs up top to look for the moonsault knees. He's stopped though by Ricochet, and they both end up teetering on the crowd barricade, where Ricochet hits a terrifying Death Valley driver, landing Speedball on Kenny, who's still draped over the barricade. Ricochet presses the advantage now and hits a pair of dives onto his opponents before stealing Schiavone's headset to tell us about how great he is. He says, "I'm going to beat both of these guys and there's nothing anyone can do about it." And of course, he's instantly wiped out by a super kick from Speedball, who then grabs the headset himself, but maybe grabs the wrong one, or maybe it got unplugged or something by the super kick. Either way, we can't hear what Speedball says, but I'm sure it was inspiring. More moves are exchanged back in the ring, and then Kenny falls victim to a backslide attempt from Speedball, but Ricochet takes advantage, trying to pin both at once, but they both kick out. Bayley now lands a clever double crucifix pinfall on both men, but that also doesn't work, and then Kenny completes the set, getting 2 off a double backslide. A little bit later on, we get a series of dives now, with Speedball kicking Ricochet off the apron and hitting a triangle springboard moonsault, Kenny following this up with his big Terminator dive onto both, and then Ricochet nailing a Fosbury flop. Speedball's next again with a big Asai moonsault, and the action finally moves back inside. Speedball stacks both opponents and hits his moonsault knees before wiping Kenny out with a nice spin kick, but Ricochet breaks the resultant pinfall by just grabbing the referee. Speedball doesn't like this at all and chases Ricochet to the outside, where he beats him down in frustration. He then goes for the moonsault knees on the apron, but Ricochet moves and it's a horrible landing for Speedball, knees first. The referee checks on Bayley, so Ricochet charges in and takes kind of both out with a running chop block. I think he was only meant to take Speedball out because Rick Knox brushes this off rather easily and just gets back in the ring. He's the toughest ref in the business. All 3 men end up in the same corner of the ring, where Speedball hits a poison rana on Ricochet and then heads back up top, but Kenny drops him into the top turnbuckle face first and then starts hitting snapdragons on both opponents before hitting a big one on both simultaneously. V-triggers then follow, with Speedballs sending him flying to the outside. Ricochet, though, escapes the one-winged angel, hops up to the second rope, but Kenny grabs him and hits Kreutz Wrath for 2. Bayley then backslides Kenny shortly thereafter, but Ricochet joins in with a rope-assisted dirty pinfall attempt of his own, but the champion kicks out. Bayley, a little bit later on, goes for Ultima Weapon from the middle rope. It's like the moonsault knees, but from the corner. But Kenny manages to avoid it and grabs a leg lock. It looks like Speedball might not be able to make the ropes, but it doesn't matter because Ricochet springs in with a 450 onto Kenny mid-submission, but it only gets 2. Ricochet runs through his signature offense on Speedball and sets up for the end, but Kenny drags him out the ring and takes over. At one point around this time, there's a roll-up attempt, and it only gets 2, but the ref is again legitimately caught in the face by the kick out, and again brushes it off. Well done, Rick. Solid. Ricochet hits a big shooting star press on Kenny, who kicks out, and then hits another one on Speedball, but he manages to reverse that into a cradle for 2, and now Ricochet's had enough. He begs off Bayley, who blasts him with kicks, but then Ricochet targets the leg of Speedball, who now can't stand on it, so he does the Karate Kid crane stance, and Ricochet goes, that's not going to work, and then unwisely runs straight into the crane kick, followed by Ultima Weapon from Speedball. 1-2. Kenny breaks up the pinfall attempt with a V-trigger. Ricochet ends up trying to hit a top rope move on Speedball, but Kenny intercepts him and destroys Ricochet with a middle rope one-winged angel down to the canvas below. Bayley might have been able to break the pinfall, but he is stuck in the Tree of Woe position, and Kenny pins Ricochet to retain the belt, and I am out of breath. After the match, as many have predicted, we get the arrival of Kazuchika Okada. They have a bit of a stare down, and then Kenny leaves. It very much implies this future unification, maybe, title match between Kenny's international title and Okada's continental title. And finally, the main event, the AEW World Title match. Jon Moxley defending against Swerve Strickland. We get a slow, patient start to this one from both men until some heavy bombs are laid in by Swerve in the corner, and he hits his jumping elbow strike to the back as well. Swerve gets nimble to avoid a few Moxley attacks, and it spills to the outside where Swerve whips Moxley into the crowd barricade. He throws him back in and heads up top, but then Moxley elbows Swerve and he falls to the outside where Marina Shafir just sort of casually steps on the challenger as she walks past. More cheap shots are laid in as Moxley distracts the referee, and then once Swerve makes it back inside, Moxley starts to really grind him down. However, it's not long before they go back to ringside where Swerve gets thrown over the announce table and temporarily takes out Excalibur as well. When we next see Strickland emerge, he's busted open and Moxley bites away at the head. Moxley lays Swerve on top of the ring steps and lays in right hands. He then hits the Paradigm Shift, or the Death Rider, on top of the steps as well, and Swerve only just beats the count out back into the ring. Moxley follows this up with a big pile driver, but Strickland kicks out at 2, but the champion continues to wear Swerve down. He does start to fire up with big right hands though. One of these wobbles Moxley, but he kind of laughs it off, and they get into a big exchange of forearms. It's quite even, but Moxley grabs a Kimura and then transitions into a Jujikatame and then into a triangle choke, and Swerve has to slowly power his way up and slam his way out of the hold. Moxley regains control of the match once again with a cutter and then by reversing a vertebraker into the bulldog choke. He also wraps Swerve up with the body scissors with his legs as well, and Swerve almost fades, but he fights to his feet and does the Bret Hart style reversal, kicking off the second turnbuckle to roll out of it before dropping Moxley with a flatliner and a kick to the head for a near fall. He follows this up with a house call, but when he goes for the second one, Moxley springs back to life and hits a lariat, but then Swerve fires up and hits that second house call anyway. Both men are down, so Marina gets into the ring with the briefcase, but Prince Nana gets in there and stands in her way. He turns then to check on how Swerve's doing, which is very silly because Marina just clocks him in the back with the briefcase. Swerve though has time to recover and pulls Marina into the way of a cutter from Moxley before stealing the paradigm shift, but John kicks out just in time. Swerve heads up top for the stomp, but Moxley gets back to his feet and shoves the challenger to the outside. Moxley now fetches a ladder from under the ring and sets it up at ringside near the steps. He pushes Swerve up one side of the ladder and climbs the other side himself, looking in theory for a move down onto the ring steps below, but it's quite clear from the angle that at least one of these two is going through the Spanish announce table, which is just below. In the end, it's both of them who go through after Swerve fights back and hits a terrifying Swerve stomp, sending both men all the way down and crashing through the table. Once they're back in the ring, we get another strike exchange and Moxley kicks out the knee of Swerve. Marina Shafir slides him a chair and he then throws it at Strickland, who ducks, nailing the referee by accident. Swerve hits the vertebraker on Moxley and both men are down, and here comes Hangman Adam Page. He sets up Swerve for the buckshot, or is he setting up Moxley for the buckshot instead? He doesn't really seem to have made up his mind, but before he can do anything, he's attacked by Pac, Claudio, and Yuta, who beat him down. Wheeler goes for the running knee, but Hangman moves and Wheeler blasts Claudio by accident. Hangman then clears the Death Riders out of the ring and is grabbed by Moxley, but drops him with Deadeye. Hangman then gets out of the ring and continues to brawl with the Death Riders. The numbers are against him, of course, but here come the Ops, Joe, Shibata, and Hook, and we get a big brawl between the Ops and the heels, and they all head to the back. In the ring, it seems like this is Swerve's moment. He throws a chair into Moxley's face, heads up top, and nails the Swerve stomp, but of course there's no referee. Strickland crawls to make the cover anyway, but he's too weak to do so, and just as he gets close to the champion, the lights go out. When they come back, Swerve has been grabbed by the returning Young Bucks, who hit him with the BTE trigger. Moxley makes the cover, and of course, the referee has recovered just in time to see this pinfall attempt and count the 3. Nice one, lads. Great. Nice one. Thanks, guys. The crowd are angry, obviously. So am I. And the Bucks leave all smug through the arena, and we see Hangman looking vengeful on the ramp. And okay. Well, I don't know. I don't know what to think of it. It feels a bit... I'm not one of those people who, like, whenever I disagree with something AEW does, I'm not the first person to, like, compare them to the latter days of WCW. I don't think it's... You know, I think it's very different from that. But in this instance, it did feel a bit like one of those Bischoff-Russo, wow, we fooled you all, the fans. It felt like one of those, didn't it? Maybe just a little bit. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. And thank you very much for watching this video as well. I've been Jack from Cultaholic. Thank you to Luke and to Pierce for editing this video as well. And I'll see you all very, very soon.